As if we weren't worried about identity theft enough, something new to be thinking about and what you can do.
Plus, for all of you tech fans who have been waiting and waiting and waiting for the new Samsung Galaxy foldable phone to come out, well, it sounds like the wait may maybe finally be over. This is News Center Now.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Lindsay Mills.
And I'm Lee Nelson. We're glad you are with us. In exactly 3 weeks, more than 250 asylum seekers have to be out of that emergency shelter at the Portland Expo. And today, immigrant community leaders came together to address some of the growing concerns around finding these families housing. One of the concerns was raised earlier this week in a pretty explosive city council workshop where city staff accused Mayor Strimling of giving the asylum families false information they believe led them to actually turn down certain housing options. So after sitting down with asylum seekers last night, the leaders say they have no doubt these families will take any housing option given to them, and they are confident a solution will be found before that August 15th deadline.
We met with individuals themselves. We heard their own voices that they're willing to relocate and they're willing to go whenever they are sent, because any place is better than what they have right now at the Expo.
So these leaders say they are currently looking at 30 different properties, and they are located in areas from Portland up to Gardner. They're also working on a carpooling initiative for people who would like to help but aren't able to open up their own homes. So again, a story we will continue to follow as it progresses.
Updates on air and online. All right, it was another postcard perfect day out there.
Yep.
These are the days that we just need to bottle up and remember when it's the middle of February, Keith.
You're going to learn to ski this. Well, maybe not this winter. Maybe not this winter.
That's a little ambitious.
Maybe the winter after would make more sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's have a look at the satellites. Looking pretty good. Visible satellite is clean. Just a few cumulus clouds in the mountains, but most of us are in good shape. High temperatures today, mostly in the upper 70s. Interesting that Wiscasset and Freiburg with the 280s, because Freiburg I get. Wiscasset is somewhat surprising. Usually they're not one of the warmer spots on the map, but again, most of us comfortable, and we're comfortable still in the 70s, upper 70s, and we'll trail down into the 50s later on. Tonight will be clear, so nothing really going on here, and then tomorrow is much like today. A couple of cumulus clouds pop up in the afternoon. Otherwise, it's a few degrees warmer. I'd say more 82, 83 degree readings than what we saw today. And then we are clear overnight again on Friday, and the weekend is looking really, really nice. The only thing we really have to watch is some heat for early next week. And guys, we are, Jess and I were talking about this, we're in a pattern that's so good that we're bored. So that's where you want to be at generally.
When the weather folks are bored, things are good.
Exactly.
Yes, no doubt. All right, Keith, thanks. We'll talk to you again in a bit. We'll get to some headlines this Thursday evening. The Justice Department says it will begin executing inmates on federal death rows for the first time since 2003. 5 inmates will be executed starting in December. In 2014, President Obama directed the department to conduct a review of capital punishment and specifically issuing issues surrounding lethal injection drugs, and that resulted in a temporary freeze on executions. But the department says the Bureau of Prisons has completed that review and executions can now continue.
In the wake of House hearings on the Mueller report yesterday, Democrats say they will continue to investigate President Trump. Democrats currently have several investigations underway that don't require cooperation from the White House or the Justice Department. Plus, the House Judiciary Committee is filing a lawsuit to get its hands on secret grand jury testimony and to challenge the White House claim of absolute immunity to block testimony from the president's aides. We want to know what you think. What should Congress do now? Should they keep investigating, or is it time to move on? Weigh in right now on our Pulse poll at pulse.newscentermaine.com, or you can scroll through our new app and find the Pulse section there.
To Cape Cod now, cleanup has begun there. where 2 tornadoes touched down on Wednesday. The National Weather Service confirmed that there were 2, and one of them started as a waterspout. Both twisters had maximum wind speeds of 110 miles an hour. Amazingly, no injuries reported. But thousands are still without power down there. And prior to a storm last year, the last confirmed tornado on Cape Cod was back in 1977.
Some health news now. More young women are getting skin cancer. According to a new study from Washington University, between 1970 and 2009, melanoma rates increased 800% among women under the age of 40. And researchers go on to say the continued use of indoor tanning beds may be to blame. They estimate the beds have caused more than 400,000 cases each year. The scientists say a single tanning session can increase the risk of developing melanoma by 20%. Melanoma is the deadliest form of skin cancer. Well, after a year of interim leadership, the city of Portland has finally tapped its new head of police.
Frank Clark has been moving up the ranks at the South Portland Police Department since 1988, most recently served as a lieutenant there, and he will replace Mike Sawchuk, who stepped down last summer to become Portland's assistant city manager, and then later, of course, was appointed the Commissioner of Public Safety by Governor Janet Mills. Clark says he's honored to work for Portland PD, and he is ready to get to work.
And I really look at my role as being the person that can kind of set the stage, look forward, help move the department forward with the rest of the team, and help provide them with the resources that they need in order to do their jobs.
So Clark does have to be approved as chief by city council members. That vote is expected sometime in September. And now this, what first responders see during their daily jobs can be hard to look at sometimes.
The injuries people suffer in serious car crashes, for example, can leave a mental mark on the police and firefighters who help them. Chris Costa is here to explain one way they're getting help.
Lindsay, police chaplains are not a new concept, but more towns are putting a focus on having one available for the men and women who protect the public. One Maine first responder with decades of experience on the streets in the field is now helping others through his faith.
Just 5 were severe injuries, one of which was critical and transported by life flight. That individual was an 8-year-old child.
These are types of situations first responders see every day.
It was a bad crash.
That 8-year-old Raylyn Bell died from her injuries in this crash in Gorham on Sunday. While her parents are grieving, first responders are processing.
I wish that my mind could forget the things my eyes have seen.
That's where Jeffrey Pelkey comes in.
Your mind is trained inherently as a human being to shut those things off, and that's a big load for any human being to carry alone.
The police officer and firefighter has spent his entire life as a first responder in Kittery, Elliott, and the Berwicks. Now, he's a police chaplain in Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
When people trust you, they will share the things with you that are really tough for them, because most human beings have the capacity to relieve that. They just need the keys to unlock it. And so I like to keep the keys.
He's helped his friends deal with tragic losses, including the death of Berwick Fire Captain Joel Barnes. He says the conversations that came out of that loss will help first responders for years to come.
The health of these people reflects directly on their longevity and how they do their job. And if you have healthy, well-balanced people, they're going to do a far better job on the street.
So Pelkey says that he spends the majority of his time interacting with officers where they are, a lot of times in their police cruisers. And as for that fundraiser for that little girl who died in the Gorham crash, they're at about $28,000, just shy of their goal of about $30,000. Lee and Lindsay.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for that. Well, you think your protected data is safe? Think again. Scientists say they've cracked the code to uncover that information, what you can be checking to make sure your identity is protected.
Also, if you haven't yet, download our new Center Maine app. It's free in the Apple Store and Google Play. So if you were with us yesterday, you remember that we told you the Federal Trade Commission was investigating Facebook.
And today the company is confirming that. A spokesperson for Facebook says they were first informed of the investigation in June. On Tuesday, the Department of Justice also announced a broad antitrust probe of several technology companies. That announcement did not specify what companies the agency was looking into, though broad antitrust concerns have long swirled around Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google. The investigations are part of a global attempt to crack down on the growing power of these American tech companies.
A top executive for Juul Labs, the makers of those vaping pens, told House lawmakers that his company is taking steps to keep those electronic cigarettes away from kids. The Juul co-founder, James Monsees, testified today the company never intended the vaping devices to be adopted by teens. The company says it's providing an alternative to adult smokers who want to quit. The hearing today marks the first time Juul has been called before Congress amid a surge in teen vaping. Federal law does ban the sale of e-cigarettes to those under 18.
Apple, speaking of, is making it a lot easier for you to transfer data from an old iPhone to a new one.
Yeah, a new feature lets you transfer everything but the apps in the most recent iOS 12.4 update, okay? It's as simple as actually having your old iPhone near your new one. It doesn't require an iCloud backup. All you have to do is choose transfer from your phone, connect the phones to the same Wi-Fi network, and bam! Users can now transfer messages, pictures, videos, app settings, and more, but the apps will still need to be downloaded after you finish the initial setup. It's a good option for those who haven't saved a recent iCloud backup, or you may have not enough iCloud space.
Good to know. We want to check in on our Pulse poll results right now. What do you think Congress should do now that they've heard from the special counsel? 33% say keep investigating. 65% say it's time to move on. All right, coming up, we're going to hear from an expert who's giving us some tips on how to make sure our personal information stays protected.
All right, so you signed up for a new credit card, or maybe you applied for a rewards program at your grocery store, or you filled out some paperwork at your doctor's office. That information is protected, right?
Right. So you think, well, a couple of scientists have found a way to piece together that protected information, and they found a way to crack the code. Not only that, they posted how they did it online. But as one local tech expert explains, this could be the first step in figuring out how to prevent others from doing it.
Your information is out there, and companies promise to protect it through data anonymization.
What you think is anonymous normally is not. In today's computerized environment,
Henry Felch from the University of Maine Augusta says information like your gender, marital status, and zip code can be pieced together from many sources. And now, according to a New York Times report, a couple of scientists have found a way to use 15 of those attributes to identify more than 99% of Americans.
they're taking anonymous data sets from many different sources.
What can that be used for?
Steal somebody's identity.
The scientists published their formula online.
By publishing the method now, we can see how that algorithm finds the pieces. So now maybe as researchers, we can look to see how we can make it more secure going forward.
Felch says the best way to protect yourself is to stay vigilant. There are several things you should be checking often, like your credit report and your Social Security earnings. If you have children, you should also monitor their Social Security number to make sure no one's using it. It's also not a bad idea to check your child's credit report.
The only other solution is to not be involved in today's society.
Meanwhile, a follow-up to that renewed hype surrounding the selfie-altering app FaceApp. Just like with any app, if you downloaded it, you agreed to the terms of use, which essentially means you agreed the app developers and company can do pretty much whatever they want with the content you approve the app to use. Perhaps, though, you've since deleted the app from your phone and now you think your information's safe. Not exactly. Experts recommend sending a request to FaceApp to delete your data using settings in the app. Once you're there, tap report a bug and use the word privacy in the subject line. So you have to actually re-download the app, then go back in, go through settings,
So
and
here's a
then
weird
you
question.
free up your data.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whose face is that important? Like, so they have access to your
facial
face.
recognition now?
Yeah, but if you so in this instance, you'd have to be on no other social media platform to, in my mind, to be truly concerned about it.
Yeah.
I just don't think it matters.
I think for a lot of people, I think it's more principle than it is actually they're going to go out and rob a bank and they're afraid they're going to get, seen by,
Right.
I think it's
Right.
just the principle of privacy that we've always had that now we no longer have,
Yeah,
Gotta
it's
read
a
the fine
trade-off.
print.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off for all the other stuff, I suppose.
Yeah.
Anyways, because I had somebody say that to me when you did the face app. Well, what if somebody can use their face? And I go, I'm going to make this really obvious for you. There are other ways to get my face, like
like television.
Stop scaring us.
Like that, yeah. All right, anyways. Here's a look. There was a guy who emailed earlier, Lee, I don't know if you saw this, that he didn't like that I moved around a lot in front of the camera, so he's not going to enjoy that very much. Nice and sunny out there right now. Got a couple of showers way west of us, but these have been drying up as they get into central New Hampshire, so no problems with that. We'll be clear through the rest of tonight. Look at this, Kennebunkport. Just a beautiful day, and I could have picked basically any camera. I looked through a bunch of them, but this one was really, really pretty. And this is what the late afternoon, early evening has been looking like. It will look like that the next few days as well. Temperatures in the 70s. We did pop to 80, as I mentioned, in Freiburg and Wiscasset, an unlikely pair there. Water temperature 68 here, but I'll give you a tour of the rest of the coastline briefly because it is not 68 in most parts of Maine in the water right now. Hour-by-hour forecast looking clear overnight tonight. Good tomorrow as well. It's a very similar day to today. The only difference is we pick up a few degrees, probably 2 or 3 in most cases, getting into the low 80s more consistently. There will still be ocean influence in Rockland, Bar Harbor, Eastport, Machias, so temperatures there stay in the 70s. A little bit of a fog bank overnight on Friday, and then Saturday looks great. This model that I'm showing you was showing a lot of showers earlier, and I didn't know where that was coming from. And sure enough, it's been backing off every run since. So I think all we're looking at is a couple of cumulus clouds in the mountains on Saturday afternoon. It's much warmer inland all weekend, though, than it is along the coastline. There will be a substantial and early onset sea breeze. So just something to think about there. It might be a little bit nicer inland, but still, 75, 76 along the coast in the afternoon is not bad. So high pressure is dominant over the weekend. It slides east, becomes a Bermuda high on Monday and Tuesday. And when that happens, you bring the warm, humid air in from the mid-south, and you'll feel that air mass change happen. But it won't be drastic because it'll be building on itself, which is a little bit easier to take. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Now, I will say that I might be slightly undercutting Tuesday. A couple of models, the European model has 94, 95 in places on Tuesday, so we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. But then we come back down on Wednesday and Thursday. Here's a tour of water temperatures. We used this to talk about flesh-eating bacteria yesterday, so I figured we'll talk about going in the water instead. And it is, so we have 68 on the buoy, but as you can see, that's an anomaly. This is a good argument for lake life. Sebago Lake, 74. That is one thing about lakes. You can actually swim in them,
Clay's at home nodding, saying, yes, Keith, keep convincing Lindsay lake life
is
over
lake,
Salt Lake.
I thought he wanted that ocean boat. No?
Well, he wants a boat in general. It's never going to happen.
He wants a, hey, never say never. The weekend looks good. And but you will, Lee is a former boat owner, and you'll see a lot of those for reasons we can discuss later.
Yeah,
but,
We're worrying about this vessel right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, steer that ship in first. I will figure out the rest.
Oh, Keith, thanks.
Excellent.
The wait is almost over for Samsung's foldable phone.
Yeah, finally, after several delays, Samsung says it's going to relaunch the much-anticipated Galaxy Fold smartphone in September. Now, the initial April launch was postponed indefinitely when reviewers discovered the device failed in some test versions. Among the big problems, when you folded the phone, the screen broke. Samsung says it's fixed that problem. Let's hope they're right, because this phone is not cheap. It's $2,000. Samsung says it will release more details about the exact launch date in the coming weeks. After some criticism, the food delivery app DoorDash is changing its tipping policy for its delivery drivers.
Before this change, customer tips were going to DoorDash itself rather than the person who actually delivered the food. From now on, the tips will go to the delivery people called Dashers. Instacart, another delivery app, has been criticized and sued for similar practices that also led to policy changes. The changes tie into a larger debate about jobs and fair pay in the so-called gig economy.
Tinder has a new feature to help LGBTQ users avoid discrimination in other countries. Starting today, they're rolling out a traveler alert that will appear when Tinder is opened in one of these locations to ensure that people are aware of the potential dangers to the LGBTQ community. One of the alerts is activated, or once it is, users will have the choice to remain hidden while in that location or opt to make their profile public so they can connect with new people. There are still nearly 70 countries around the world that have laws effectively criminalizing LGBTQ status.
Very Very interesting. You don't think about that. A lot more coming up on News Center Maine at 5:30. Cindy's here to tell us all about it.
Yeah, we got a couple serious stories. A federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit filed by the father of that teenager who died on a swimming field trip. We will tell you what the judge said about the actions of the Lewiston school and the chaperones who were there that day. And the Lewiston Police Department was just stunned when one of their own OD'd on fentanyl in February, and we now know how that officer got a hold of those drugs. Those stories and much more ahead at 5:30. Back to you.
We'll see you guys at 5:30. We're back with Braindrops after this. All right, one last check of our Pulse poll results tonight. What do you think that Congress should do now that the Special Counsel Robert Mueller has gone through those hearings? 66% of you say it is time to move on. So thanks for joining that conversation.
Honestly, like any political poll we can do that's not exactly 60-40, I consider a victory. Because
Right?
it seems like every one we do is exactly the same. So people moved a little bit one way or another. All right, we talked about flesh-eating bacteria yesterday, and I said, you know, it's very scary, but statistically is a very low chance. And so we were going to talk today about something called the dread factor, which plays into stuff like the flesh-eating bacteria. This is a chart. It's got a lot going on, but I'm going to break it down for you here. You've got unknown risk here and known risk here. So people feel like they understand the risk of fireworks, alcohol, bridges, auto accidents. They feel like they do not understand electric fields, DNA, microwave ovens, okay? And then from left to right is your dread factor. People are not dreading caffeine, aspirin, vaccines, although this is from the 80s. Since then, vaccines may have moved a little bit.
Sure.
But they really, really dread nuclear reactor accidents, nuclear fallout.
PCBs,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of things will date this. It was from the 1987, but they haven't updated this necessarily. This is the best one I could find.
Yeah.
But what I find is interesting is that the ways that you're most likely to die, so under 35, statistically, your best chance of dying is an auto accident. Look where it is in the dread factor. Non-existent. It's
Dynamite.
It's neutral, yeah. Even handguns. Obviously, we have a lot of handgun or gun deaths in the United States. Dread factor is not super high. Meanwhile, satellite crash, dread factor, pretty high. Things that people think would, one, be a bad way to die, or they have no control over. They feel they have no control over. That's why auto accidents has never been high dread factor people, because they believe that they could avoid it. Even if someone's going to run a red light at 70, they think they could do something about that. And some of the ones that would be added to this in modern time, flesh-eating bacteria would be high in the dread factor.
Jellyfish.
Yeah.
For me.
Ebola, although it is obviously very serious, it never really had any chance to get going in this country, but the method of death was very scary. So the story here is humans are bad evaluators of statistical risk. We make decisions based on dread factor, what seems scary, more unknown, not necessarily what the chances are, because what you don't see on here, for example, is heart disease. The number one killer doesn't exist in the dread factor. It doesn't scare people. So
really interesting. I'm just figuring out where I fall in all of
you
this.
got a little. If you got a weird computer brain like me, it helps.
Thanks, Keith. News Center Maine at 5:30 starts right now.